It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 170, entitled Unhappy Ending. It was recorded on Monday the 5th of July 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and as always I'm going to be joined by my co-host Paul Lacey, but also this week we're joined by Jonathan Wold, and a little bit late to the party, Brian Gardner joins us as well, and it's a good job he does. However, I have to apologise at the start. We had a bit of a technical malfunction. We don't quite know what happened, but the platform that we used to stream the episode just broke down on us, but fear not. We got about 58 minutes in, so most of what we wanted to say we had a chance to say, but it does sort of suddenly cut out at the end. But stick around for what we did manage to get to. So for example, we talk about 5.8 and the fact that full site editing is just around the corner. We then move on to talk about block patterns, and Brian Gardner has a brand new product called Frost, which you may be interested in hearing about. It's a collection of amazing block patterns and you're going to be able to download them soon. So we talk about that. We talk also about the fact that WordCamps and meetups may be starting soon, but is it only going to be for people who have been thoroughly vaccinated? WooCommerce Payments, what's that all about? It's rolled out to a whole new bunch of countries. Jonathan's got the lowdown about that. And then, as we were talking about 800 million user records for WordPress being leaked out onto the internet, that's where things went wrong. So that's what we've got for you this week. I hope that you enjoy it. This Week in WordPress was brought to you by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Go check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Hello, and more helloing. How are you doing, Paul Lacey? How's it going?
I'm doing good, but Nathan, where's your WordPress t-shirt? What's wrong with you, dude?
Oh yeah.
Come on, man.
Oh, right. Okay, wait a minute. Reaches for sticker that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's a button somewhere. Oh, darn. I haven't got one. Right, that's the title of this week's episode. Where's your WordPress t-shirt? Write it down.
Where's your WordPress t-shirt?
Yeah.
Dude.
If you're okay, well, dude. If you're listening to this on the audio, it's because I've got this bland t-shirt on, and Paul Lacey's.
It's the same t-shirt.
It's the same. Honestly, it walks itself. I just have to walk into it. It's like crispy around the edges. We're straying off here, aren't we? Slightly. The reason I'm saying this is because the reason I'm saying this is because both Paul and our guest today, Jonathan Wold, they're both wearing WordPress t-shirts. They're actually walking the walk and talking the talk. Speaking of Paul Lacey, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
doing good today. Yeah, the sun is shining here, which is nice, but it's not too hot, so it's a lovely balance for English people like me.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the heat. I'm in the attic room. You can probably tell because of the slope on the ceiling there, and we get the heat at this time of day. Normally, for like 9 months, 10 months, 11 months of the year, it's fine. This is the one day, and I'm already starting to sweat. So forgive me if I go slightly off-piste. Do you want to introduce our special guest today?
I certainly will. We have today Jonathan Wold, who I met a couple of weeks ago, actually, on the WP Tonic panel show, which is a bit like This Week in WordPress, but imagine in a kind of bizarre Twin Peaks sort of universe where everything goes sideways a lot, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun show, and we had a lot of fun together on that, and with Spencer and the other Jonathan actually on that. So go check that out if you want to have a few laughs. Probably me and Jonathan ganging up on Spencer a little bit, I think. We met there, and what was cool as well is Jonathan wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago about the concept of a marketplace for WordPress, like a plugin marketplace for WordPress, and he wrote an article about that, and we covered that on this show, and we covered it on WP Tonic. But to actually read out Jonathan's bio here, it's moved on. So it says here, Jonathan has been working in the WordPress ecosystem for 17 years and loves WordPress and the open web. And in April, he wrapped up 18 months at Automatic, working with WooCommerce And now he's working towards an app store for WordPress. So it's happening. So, Jonathan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Welcome to the show, and tell us about the this upgrade of I'm writing about an idea to I'm working towards it actually happening.
I think the key word there is towards.
Towards.
There's a lot of parts and pieces to it, and I'll just call out at this point too. From my perspective, what's represented in that piece is me trying to do my best to articulate the benefits and trade-offs of WordPress like being decentralized, and this idea that a marketplace or an app store, if you will, can help mitigate some of those trade-offs. And I'll just call out that from my perspective, there's a lot of different ways that could happen. I've got some specific ideas about what I think is a good approach to it happening. But what I care about most is just progress in those directions. So for instance, a number of those ideas might make even more sense to just bring to .org directly with or without the commercial aspect. So I'm pretty unattached to the specifics of how it comes about, though I do have opinions. And that's why, for me, it's the word towards. It's like I want to see progress happen in the ecosystem one way or the other. My hypothesis is that a quote unquote private marketplace done right is probably a faster way to get there. So, but that's for me the word towards. It's like, all right, the focus is let's get the ideas out there. Let's make progress. Let's figure out what's at the heart of this, and then wherever it leads is where I want to see it go.
Are you working alone? Or you,
no.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess more.
Yeah,
you
don't do something like this alone. Like there's no.
And you used to work for Automatic 18 months ago. I think you left, or you worked there for 18 months. Was that right?
I wrapped up in April. Yeah. I wrapped up 18 months, which was fantastic.
What do you think they'll think about the idea?
I've talked to quite a few folks at Automatic about it, and lots of positive feedback. Details matter, right? Like in terms of how something like that would work. And I think the general sentiment, both that I've picked up both with and from inside and outside of Automatic, is it's very complex as a thing, right? The ecosystem is complex. Like you can't, this isn't something that you just wake up and say, okay, we're going to do. It requires, at least from my perspective, a really careful understanding of the different parties that are affected by it. And ultimately what you're trying to do is find the most wins for the most people affected by it. So Automatic in my mind is an important aspect of how you'd pull something like this off. And to me, it would be ideal for them to be involved. The question is, what's the best way for all considered?
Cool. So you actually think Automatic would potentially even entertain the idea of getting involved in something like that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. One last question, Jonathan, before we move on to Nathan's housekeeping stuff. Aren't you involved in a couple of podcasts as well? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Which ones is that?
So I'll come on WP Tonic when they invite me. Jonathan invited me on for a couple upcoming episodes, so we'll cause some more trouble there in the future. I do some work with Bob Dunn on the WooCommerce Do the Woo podcast.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep. That's a lot of fun. I co-host I think once a month or whenever Bob wants me on, and that's a lot of fun. And then I have another podcast with a good friend of mine, Luke Carbis, Crossword. And that's been fun. We've done that for a couple of years now. And I do like podcasting as a medium. So
I love podcasting.
We all love it here. Yeah.
I have an exciting piece of news, and that is that just arrived. Hey, is Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Everybody, can you guys hear me? I'm trying to use the right mic here. I am extremely sorry. For some reason I had it in my head and it was 9:00 local time.
Oh no.
And I saw Paul's DM and I went and checked my calendar. I was like, oh my god. So
I suspect, Brian, that you're not using that microphone. We can hear you, but I would imagine you're not. If you click on the little cog wheel beneath the screen and click it'll be a Shure SMV7, I'm guessing, is what it looks like.
Is this not much better?
That's loads better. Yeah, that's really nice. And a consequence of you arriving is that Paul Lacey's just decided to leave. His screen has gone completely dark, and we're sadly no. His battery often runs out, so he has to go and do some jiggery pokery, and he'll be back. He's got a really posh SLR camera. There he is. And sometimes the battery needs to be swapped. It's a physical battery. You can't plug it in like a USB.
No, it wasn't that. My dog just went nuts.
Oh,
so I just had to get her sorted.
Okay.
Brian, great to meet you. I'm so glad that you're here. Sorry if we've messed up the calendar things for you there, mate. But
no, that was all me.
No, you've made it much easier because our first couple of items would have been really tricky without you here because I hadn't researched them enough to not just pass it over straight to you. So I was desperately reading the articles properly before you came on. So that's a great relief.
Do you want to give Brian a proper introduction?
I'll try, and I'll miss out a whole bunch of stuff. So here we have Brian Gardner, who is a living piece of WordPress history, really.
Wow.
I'll probably get some of this wrong, but I'm pretty sure you more or less kicked off the concept of premium WordPress plugins or WordPress themes. You were definitely right there at the beginning of that whole thing. And then you founded your company, Studio Press, which is the company that created the legendary theme framework Genesis. You sold that about 2 years ago to Deutsche Engine. And since then, you did some different side projects. As far as I understand, you went to Starbucks quite a lot to drink a lot of coffee there and think about life. Then you became a DVD recommender to me. And so thank you. You recommended me Aspen Extreme and Thrashing, which, sorry, I haven't watched yet. But I will watch those and get back to them. And but then more recently, you started a new project called Frost WP, which we're going to come on to straight after the first piece. We're going to segue straight into that because it seems to fit perfectly with what we're talking about there. So I've missed a lot of stuff there, but anything else you want to add to the mix there, Brian?
Most everything is right. I don't know if I am the pioneer of the premium WordPress theme market, but I was certainly one of the first to be there. So that was all right. Studio Press is right. Genesis Framework is right. Legendary, as it pertains to some of those things, definitely right. The acquisition of WP Engine, believe it or not, and this might just be because it doesn't feel like it's been this long, but we just celebrated the 3-year anniversary. So it's been 3 years, which is mind-blowing to me, given how fast time goes and how almost yesterday it feels. So it also reminds me that for 3 years, I've basically been doing nothing, which is a little bit scary. Hence the move towards some sort of a monetizable situation, because I realized I didn't want to do the agency thing. I was doing a little bit of agency work with some friends through a line of business called Authentic. Since then, I mean, I've picked up some freelance design projects here and there just because I like to do that kind of thing, and people hit me up once in a while for stuff like that. Agent Engine was probably the one little piece that you missed. This is sort of the precursor to Frost. Jonathan, you and I talked about that probably 6 to 7, 9 months, something like that. It's something that we kind of tried, and COVID really screwed up a lot of things. The real estate technology space kind of is one of them, just given the market and how busy real estate agents are. None of them think they need a website because all they're doing is spending time getting people into houses and reviewing offers. So when things come around, I think things will come around. And I think people will realize, especially now, right? Because a lot of people lost their jobs. And so maybe they jumped into real estate because it was so hot. So there's actually going to be an overabundance of agents, and there's going to be very little inventory. And that market's going to completely, I think, flip-flop very soon. So, and then, yes, Frost, that's the elephant in the room, at least in my life now. So.
We will say a big hello to that elephant in just a minute. But before we do, just a few bits of housekeeping. Pretty boring stuff, but good for us if you can manage to do it. Firstly, if you're watching this, the easiest way to watch this is wpbuilds.com/live. That gives you YouTube comments, so you need to be logged into Google. if you want to comment. The other option is if you're in the Facebook group by any chance, then you would need to go to that URL there. It's chat.restream.io/Facebook. Otherwise, you remain anonymous to us. That's fine. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's totally fine. But just to let you know that if you want to not be anonymous, you'll need to click on a link when you get to there. There is one little chat. So this is an example of it. This person, we don't know who you are because you didn't click that link. But good afternoon to you. And Cameron, all the way in Australia. Hello again, Cameron. Nice to see you. Yeah, Cameron Jones. And another one. Hey guys, Facebook user. I've got a sneaky suspicion it's going to be Lee Jackson because last week it was Lee Jackson, and it was always Lee who was commenting in that way. Okay, let's get stuck into it properly then. Good to have you, Jonathan and Brian. We've got a fairly large amount to get through, so we'll crack straight on. This is our website, wpbuilds.com. Enough of that. Let's get to the actual good stuff. So 5.8 is just around the corner. We're really close now. This is a massive release. I mean, really, really, really shaping up to be one of the bigger releases in the time that I've been fretting about WordPress releases. And we're at that stage where really, if things are going to ship on time and ship in a way that works and doesn't break everything and disappoint everybody, we need to get as many people eyeballing the test environment. And so basically, I'm going to link to a post on the newsletter that I put out tomorrow. So to get as many people involved as possible. There is some work to be done on the block widgets editor. I'm just going to basically paraphrase it onto the good stuff. Template editing mode and theme blocks. There's things to be worked on. Otone, we talked about that extensively the other week and how that's an interesting addition to core, shall we say. And we've now got what was the query block, but is now the query loop block. That's probably the most exciting bit that I'm interested in because Paul and I were sort of trying to build something the other day and realized this is probably what we needed because it wasn't available. So anyway, there's a boatload of stuff coming, but we need testing to be done. And if you go to the link, which I'll put in the show notes, then you'll be able to go and help Anne McCarthy and colleagues around there. Jonathan, having just sort of finished a stint at Automatic, how does this stuff go? Does it get really tense and, get fractious around the Automatic? I was going to say offices, but that's a complete misnomer because you don't do offices. Does it get kind of tense amongst the automaticians at this time of the year?
I wouldn't say so. One of the things that Automatic, I think, does really well is that the .org team is completely separate from the rest of Automatic as a business. So for things like this, like Anne McCarthy, we did an episode with Anne on Do the Woo back a couple episodes ago. June 10th, I think, is when it aired, and where we got into full site editing. And Anne's part of the .org team. And yeah, as far as your question about Automatic, yeah, I mean, it's another release for the .org team, and they do a good job keeping it separate. If anything, you get less favors as an
just deliberately staying away.
They make a point of that. I remember asking for something pretty basic for the WooCommerce plugin, and no names will be named, but I was like, oh man, what's going on? You can't even answer some basic questions about that.
No names.
Yeah,
no names.
Excited about full site editing though.
Very, very exciting. We've got a piece actually. The next piece that I want to just quickly come to. Paul, did you want to say anything on that, or Brian, before I move on? Because I kind of want to get onto the block pattern bit, really.
Well, to be honest, we've talked so much about 5.8. Over the last couple of weeks and months. The main reason we put that one in there is because we were interested to quiz you, Brian, a little bit about your sort of buy-in with the whole block editor experience. So the article that was really partnered with that one is one on WP Tavern, which is just in Tadlock talking about the new header and footer block patterns coming to WordPress and how those will all work and everything. And again, we weren't going to really go into much detail with this article as well, other than, it's sort of a case of how are they going to deploy it. Justin's pretty optimistic about it. He was pretty deflated a bit, I think, about the full site editing release when that came out. But Justin Tadlock is a big fan of the block editor for sure. Me personally, I'm sort of totally on the fence. Depends what day of the week it is. But you can sort of see on the future of these header and footers that because as I understand it, I don't think you can ship patterns with CSS, which I could be wrong about that. But my assumption on that is that if there was like some really popular block patterns, then theme authors would probably have to make their themes compatible with that block pattern, which totally makes sense to me. Or that some of the block pattern authors would have websites with little CSS snippets that you could customize to get them to work, or partner plugins, perhaps. That's what I can see happening. But unless there's anything anyone wants to say particularly about that, the thing now that you're on the show today, Brian, that we were super interested in is you're releasing this new product called Frost WP. I mean, I know what it is and Nathan knows what it is, but I'd like to introduce you in a minute to tell everyone else what it is all about. But the intriguing thing for me, Brian, is like you created Genesis. And to me, like Genesis was almost like the most artisan way that you could make a website. In fact, it was so artisan that if you were a Genesis user and you'd nailed your hooks and filters, you almost wore a t-shirt about it. You know, not you, but the users of Genesis were so proud that they made the websites in such a clean, coded way that was something to be quite proud of. And people would look for Genesis developers specifically because they knew their websites would be really solid if they went for that. So I wonder what your feeling is on the whole full site editing thing. Are you very optimistic about where this is going, and how with, for instance, Frost WP, are you trying to bring in some of that clean artisan way of doing things, but with the new things that are coming? Because these new things that are coming can create absolute chaos, in my opinion. It could go, you could be doing it really well, or you could literally make the biggest mess in WordPress that someone wants to try and make when they're creating a website. Somewhere in there was a question. So maybe just talk about Frost WP and your philosophy and what you think about full site editing and patterns and all this stuff. We'd love to know a bit more about that.
Okay, well, let me know when you need to do like a commercial break, because there's a lot I can say about all of this.
You don't have any.
Just do a heads up and we'll do a word from our sponsor. Yeah, that all loaded stuff and questions and ideas and comments. And, you know, to be perfectly honest, let me just kind of back up just a bit and just give context to the Studio Press sale and acquisition for that we did with WP Engine. A lot of it had to do with this Gutenberg thing that was getting ready to be released. We had several lines of business and we were sort of all over the place. We had this thing called Rainmaker, which was a very resource heavy line of business that we had. And so we just decided we couldn't give Genesis sort of what it deserved, right? We had it for so long. The partners were starting to kind of want to start to do our own things, myself included. And I was like, look, there's a big thing coming in WordPress, and either we need to double down and invest into it ourselves, or we need to do something with it, because I'm not going to just watch Genesis die kind of on its own. And so we decided that it was in the best interest of the community, the product, the brand, all people sort of included, to go ahead and try to find someone who could, a partner, if you will, to come in and take over and reinvest and sort of take it and run like a baton. We did find that with WP Engine. I'm thrilled with the decision we made. They've gone above and beyond. Again, I can't believe it's been 3 years since that acquisition. And a lot has changed, and it's taken WordPress itself a long time to get to where we're at, because that was 3 years ago when we saw the sort of on the horizon, the waves coming. And here we are, in full site editing still isn't completely a thing. Fast forwarding to us now, like over the last 3 years, I've kind of paid attention to all of what was going on with WordPress. I as an older mentality kind of guy, the old school thing, was like, well, I don't know if I have the energy to look into all of what's coming, and I don't know what that meant for me at the time. But I was like, so I kind of purposely did like an arm's length, like observation of what was going on. I never stopped building on WordPress. All of my side projects are and always will be on WordPress. And then I was like, okay, the agent engine thing I alluded to earlier, the real estate thing wasn't quite what we had hoped for. And I was like, well, I really do need, to figure out a way to make money, because that's part of what we need to take care of here in our family. So right around that time, I was like, I love design. I love WordPress. So let me see if there's something back in that realm. At that time, I read the article. I think it was Justin Tadlock, who, by the way, was also one of the sort of the pioneers in the theme space way back in the day. So I have huge respect for him. he wrote an article covering the block pattern library and linked to what was and still is sort of the beta version of this pattern library. I'm like, I had heard about patterns and blocks, and there's a lot of vernacular kind of running around. And I'm like, there's so many words being used around. Some theme companies or plugin WordPress companies are using their own sort of terminology, which really muddies it all. And I was like, okay, let me just click this and see what happens. And I went to the block pattern library, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I expected it would be. How does this work? And so I clicked copy. I went into a theme I had open, or a website. I went into the dashboard. I hit paste, and then like the block pattern just showed up relatively as it was presented. And I was like, okay, now I understand what a pattern is and how it functions, and the ease of use it was for me to do that. Now I have a lot of thoughts around sort of theme agnostic repository for block patterns, and then libraries that are specific for certain themes. We can get to that later. But when I saw that article, and I spent maybe 20 minutes just kind of clicking around and copying and pasting and seeing some things. And what it really did was I call this like the epiphany of where we're at now, or what I'm doing now. It made sense to me now, all of where WordPress was heading and all of the steps that it's taken. And I know we're not quite there yet, and things will still change, right? Because there's huge difference between where we're at today and what's going to happen in 5.9. But when I grasped, philosophically and, how it just came together, I was like, okay, I think I now know what I can do with this. And I don't think there ever needs to be a reason to have multiple themes anymore, at least sold by or produced by one company. And so I kind of took it as a challenge, and I'm like, I think I can create, not a framework, because it's certainly not a framework. Like, I think I can create a theme, and very creatively, with the use of patterns and layouts and, blocks and all these things, do some cool things. And so I just started exploring and playing and sandboxing, and creating ideas and taking inspiration from things I saw on the internet. And so when I realized that, I think, obviously I have a little bit of a following on WordPress and people on an email list. And I was like, this is sort of a unfair advantage that I have, that I get to potentially do this again. And of course, right now it's built on Genesis. It's a Genesis child theme. And so just really excited to sort of, I guess, re-enter from a product standpoint, the WordPress space, and kind of do it on my own terms and in a way that I, am comfortable, and, we'll see what happens.
So Frost, to be clear, it's built on top of Genesis, but it's a collection of block patterns for like a whole bunch of scenarios. So you've got them all categorized into different things that you might deploy on a typical website. But the intention is that you could build out, let's say, a landing page by just picking out the things that you see it, you like the look of it, you want to use that one, you click a button, it's there on the page, you move on, do the next one, and so on. And so you've kind of done all the design work in the background and made everything look fabulous. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, that's really what it is. I just... Rafal Tamal, who was a designer with us at Studio Press, he has a product for Figma, which most of us know is sort of a design prototyping tool used to build wireframes and stuff like that. Anyway, so he had, and I forgot to tell this part of the story because it's important. He has a product called Design Kit, and essentially what that is the Figma version of these like block patterns, sample headers, sample hero areas, sample call to actions, and he's got it in Figma so that people who are designing websites for people just grab, these sections and sort of build a very quick sort of top to bottom wireframe for like a landing page. And when I saw that, I was like, that's sort of when I saw the pattern thing from Tadlock. And then I was thinking about Rafal. I'm like, I bet if I built a sort of a library of these things, but in WordPress, now that I know you can copy and paste code, it's literally that simple. It's almost stupid simple. You can't believe that it actually works as easy as it does. I'm like, if you just build these little layers, do it in a way and then sort of export the code to make it copyable, you could build what we're looking at right now on the screen and send it to a client in, literally 3 minutes. And then of course you just customize the colors and photos and sort of, expand on it to bring their brand into it. But like, it's a really easy way to prototype live on the internet. Like these are all like, it's responsive, all of that stuff. And so you could, on a call, build a wireframe with your client and do it within, 20 clicks. And so so this is the sort of the what I call the wireframe version, the flat version of what we're doing. And of course, from here, we're doing things like starter. That's the new one. I just put that in there yesterday. So we're going to do a thing called starter sites also, which is basically these demos, these sort of one-off demos of, different ideas of things. If you go up like to the menu, it's frostwp.com/ I don't know, what's a good one we can just showcase really quickly. What's a good one? Small dash business. Let's just do that. This is an example of a starter site. That basically nice. With one click, it's just a creative way to display patterns. That's the full width image, some text there in a column, 3 call to action, 2 columns. I'm like, people do and don't need. There's edge cases, right, where people really need comprehensive, robust, website solutions. But most people, especially with COVID, they just want a quick and easy website just to put up really quickly. If you go to the
performance as well, to be fast and super. I mean, this is classic Gardner design here. That's why, for anyone who's only listening, you probably heard that ooh noises as we brought that up, because it does look beautiful. And so will it always be built on Genesis? Because isn't Genesis available for free now? Did I hear that right? I'm sure I heard something. Yeah, which makes it kind of perfect for somebody like you to actually, whether or not you were involved in it in the beginning, obviously, and created it, to take that and use it as and other people could do it, use it as their basis to create almost like this hybrid scenario where you can still have all the benefits of the hooks and filters and the child theme and the CSS file and whatever you want, SAS and everything, but embrace the whole block experience as well. So, I mean, that's like a nice balance.
Yeah, that's where we're at today, right? Because the full site editing, when it's shipped, completely sort of alters the path, right? Because a lot of the Genesis benefits, markup and hooks and filters and things like that, get cannibalized by the true full site editing experience, right? Post title, entry meta, all that kind of stuff. And so at some point in Genesis, the Studio Press team itself is building a what do they call it? The Genesis block theme, which is agnostic from the framework. So it's basically a standalone theme, right. And they're switching over to sort of the library concept. But yeah, for now, there's so many people. And now the point you made, Paul, about Genesis being free used to be the biggest point of contention for people who sold Genesis themes, is that there was always I can't package Genesis. And so I got to tell people they got to go buy it over at Studio Press. But I'm afraid if I do that, people will go over there and buy a theme instead of the one from my shop. And there was a little bit of a disconnect. And there was really never a good method for us solving for that. And so for years, and I don't know how many times in conversations or meetings that we had, I was like, guys, let's just do Genesis for free. It'll solve a lot of problems. Maybe it can even go on the repo. Maybe there's a distribution piece here that we can go. And we just never kind of got there or agreed to it. And so I'm thrilled to see WP Engine embrace that. In fact, they just also made local by Flywheel free. So there's a real open source thing happening here. And of course, there's strategy behind it, right? Because a lot of it's built around, we'll give this, it's like the freemium model to some extent. Something we never did with Genesis, but I'm thrilled now to be able to package Genesis with this and sort of, emulate what they're doing right now with blocks and patterns and layouts and collections and things like that. So yeah, that's a accurate sort of assessment of where we're at.
It's just to be clear, this is all built in. You build these things inside of the block editor. What is the interface like? Have you built anything proprietary, or is it just you sort of click find reusable blocks, you just get the little kind of extended thumbnail, if you like, and you just drop it in, and if you like it, you keep going with it? It's nothing. Or have you got like an overlay where it shows a more complete layout, anything like that?
Yeah, working through that now as a proof of concept. I just built a very simple plugin to literally just import patterns into the editor. Like when you go to add a block, you have the option to like add, I can't remember if it's like add all or something like that, which then takes it to like a little side panel, which has tabs between blocks and patterns where you can, it's the same sort of interaction that when WordPress core patterns are shipped, you can go in and search for a pattern to drop in there. That's sort of the very first iteration, just to see if things work as I expected them to. But we're working on the development now for a bigger experience, more sort of in line with like a screen modal, where you can, browse bigger from a bigger screen real estate perspective. You can see more. It's not just sort of in a little customizer side panel, but you can search for block patterns. There'll be a tab for like starter sites where you can, if you just want to go in and import the whole starter site, you can do that. And there may even be a sort of an intermediary idea or concept called layouts, which is just like a single page, group of patterns, for like, hey, maybe I need to build just a landing page. So, I don't need a whole starter site, but maybe there's, some layout, like one page layout things. And so that'll be sort of the interaction where you would literally just go into the editor and say, hey, I want to build this layout. I'm going to click this icon, which pops open the modal, and I want to select the one, and then it'll just drop it all in there, and then you can tweak it from there.
Yeah. If you've not played with block patterns, and I'm sure that there's quite a few people holding out against the whole Gutenberg thing, it's such a great initiative. Just the idea of being able to squirrel stuff away and download it from somewhere else, and it's so fast. You just click the button and boom, there it is. And this is such a neat idea. I keep stumbling across things that I didn't expect to come out of Gutenberg, and like reusable patterns as a business, I didn't see that coming, and yet here we are. People have got these great ideas selling these packs. Where do we find it? Let's just get the URL in people's heads. frostwp.com.
frostwp.com. And I'm slowly and iteratively sort of moving out the website as like progressive things happen that allow me to open the website. Like the whole landing page that you see there now rolled out, I think, early last week. And so, keep checking back. At the bottom of that is an opt-in form, which allows you to sign up for Frost News, and also to get access to the very soon to be released special introductory pricing that we're going to have. We're going to introduce sort of like a beta pilot group, sort of, early adopters, help flesh out some things and work through some things. And that'll be like an early lock-in, substantially, lower rate than it'll be normally, but.
Okay. So we're on the 5th of July now, not to put you on the spot or anything. Do you see that being a week, 2 weeks, a month, or?
I know for a fact that Frost 1.0 in its ready state won't be ready until 5.8, just because, as we talked about and can continue to talk about, there's a lot of things in there that I think I want to account for, and I want that to release. I want to make sure there's a little bit of time to make sure things that we take advantage of are there. But in the meantime, so like probably within like a week or two, I would think that the sort of early adopter will be able to go in and sign up and start really accessing things. We're just tightening up the bits of the plugin right now, the library plugin. So,
okay, so go check it out. It's at frostwp.com, and keep checking back. A week or so from now, you'll be able to
actually. You're getting some nice compliments as well, Brian.
I know, Lee. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's make use of this button here. Lee Jackson, Brian is royalty, all in capital letters. I might be fanboying right now. He says that's really cool. Okay. Nice to see David Von Gries. David is the guy behind the Page Builder framework. So really nice to have you on. Hey guys. Oh, I see. You were one of the anonymous ones earlier, as was Rick. So nice to have you with us, Rick, as well. And Lee, helpfully posting the URL for the people in the comments. Jonathan and Paul, I don't want to pass up the opportunity for you to give commentary on what Brian's just told us. So floor is yours if you want to talk.
Jonathan, you go. If you would.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts on this. First, I want to just call back to the full site editing and testing. One of the things I loved about your narrative there, Brian, was that you kind of got in and began to play with it, and that's where you saw the opportunity. And I just want to encourage folks in general, like if you haven't gone in and played with some of these things, like for your example being a good one, you never know what ideas might come to mind. The other thing I want to point out is that it's sometimes easy to assume, like with the call for testing, that, lots of other people are doing it. No, that's not the case. there is a fantastic opportunity right now at this sort of stage in WordPress is evolving to give input and feedback and have quite a bit of influence.
Yeah.
And this is something that I guess I just see this. I've seen this as a thread over the years in WordPress. Yeah, WordPress is huge. There's a lot of people that are involved, yet it's still a relatively small group of people that are giving the input. And what I love about what Anne and the rest of the folks are doing there is that they are going out and they're working hard to bring in as much input and perspective as possible to represent the majority using WordPress. And even as they do that, there's so much opportunity right now to help shape the future of what's happening. So I'm super excited with what you're doing here, Brian. And it's going to be interesting because initiatives like this, to me, are examples of what bring together the best of it's the work. A lot of the work that's going into Gutenberg. It's like, let's get the technology right. Let's get some key pieces of this right. We don't really know where this is going to go. I'm being a little ungenerous in that. I think there's this degree to which we don't know what the applications are going to be yet. And it's things like Frost that become great examples of what brings it all together. Brian, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. If there's anything that you can say at this point on business model, like how are you thinking about the business model for Frost?
Yeah, I'm always a authentic and full transparency guy, and we're going to have 2 licenses. I believe in simplicity. I don't believe in a tiered system of 1 through 5, 6 through 10. It's an administrative nightmare, and it really defeats the purpose of like a product being served for 2 different types of people. So we're going to have like a single site license, and there's going to be an unlimited site license. We assume people will see starter sites. Maybe they're a food blogger, and they're like, "Hey, I just want it from my one site, and that's it." Right? So we shouldn't charge them $300 a year for something like that. And then there's the other set of people who are building WordPress sites, whether it's a person who has, a handful of their own personal sites, or they use it as a business. And at that point, whether it's 2, 5, 6, 10, 100, I'm like, okay, it's unlimited, right? And it's going to be something, around $300 a year, which is peanuts. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's peanuts. If Frost saves 1, 2, maybe 3 hours, depending on what your rate is, per year, the ROI is insane. And, we've heard for a decade now, how many people who I still get on shows and they're like, man, I bought Pro Plus at Studio Press when it was $199, or, I donated to your breast cancer walk and I've used it and built 800 sites with it and it cost me nothing. I feel very secure in what we're building and how it's going to help people. And I feel like our pricing model, so we're going to do, and this is the one difference between Studio Press back in the day. And I remember in the acquisition article, I was asked, what is the one regret you had over the years? And it wasn't really a regret. I regretted that we never changed it. The decision back in the day to do transactional pricing was what it was. And then, of course, plugins came around and WooCommerce, and everyone was like, oh, hey, we're going to make money every year on the same people. And I was like, wow, that's a really smart thing to do. I think it was Elegant Themes. I think Nick did some like $9 a year thing, but he had like 100,000 people. And I started doing the math. And I'm like, I was like, I screwed that one up. So yes, this will be an annual thing, as it should be, as everything in our world is now. So except for Genesis is now too. But that's cool. This specific around Frost. It's going to be access to the library of patterns and starter sites and stuff like that. So the value for sure is going to be there.
Awesome.
Paul, the last thing I just got to say on this is to segue nicely and stylishly into the next one. Brian is back, but there's something else that's back, and it is going to be in-person meetups, Nathan. I don't know if we just want to say that they're coming back and there's some new rules and skip to the next one for time and stuff.
Yeah, but, I don't want this to not happen, but I just also don't want to. What's the expression when you sort of say something about carts and horses? And I kind of feel like I don't really want to announce to the rest of the world that we're thinking about going back in person. I really, really, really miss going to WordCamps and events, and I want it to happen with every fiber of my being. But I also don't want people to be put in jeopardy, and I also don't want organizers to sort of take the weight of putting any of this stuff on and then feeling like it's their responsibility if, I don't know, things have to be cancelled or people get sick or whatever. But this is great. Andrea Middleton has put this piece together: in-person meetups, events for vaccinated community members. Of course, we never get into health or politics or anything, but here we are. This is what we're going to talk about for the next moment or two. This is a very peculiar situation because we are asking people to be truly honest. You show up to a WordCamp. Normally it's like, did you pay? Yes. What's your name? Okay, here's a tabard. Now it's like, did you pay? Yes. Did you have 2 vaccines? Yes. Did you really have 2 vaccines?
You're not allowed to ask that.
No, so exactly.
This is the rule. This is the thing they've probably got to work out, because, and it's a difficult thing for them to work out, isn't it? That, like, we're aware from a few organizers who have spoken to us and said, this is all great, but basically it turns out that to go to one of the events you need to be double vaccinated, but the organizers have been told you mustn't ask the people for official proof of that. It needs to just be an honor system, which is kind of like, yeah, that's really nice, and as long as everyone is obeying the rules. But if you are someone who is, vulnerable to something like COVID, and you are going to an event on the basis that you have to trust everyone there read the rules, because some people just don't even read the stuff. They're just like, I want to go to that event. I'm not going to read any of the stuff. I'm just turning up. And so they might be in complete good faith just turning up. No one asks them anything. And someone else there who had read all the rules and was like, okay, hopefully everyone is playing by the rules, is unnecessarily at risk, for instance. Now, so that's the thing. I don't think it's a massive story. I think that basically that this comes out in the wash, that all the organizers are going to go, hang on a minute, this is difficult, and it will get sorted out some way. But I'll be interested to see what the outcome is about the rules. I don't know if you guys, Jonathan and Brian, went to a lot of WordCamps. Me and Nathan went to a few meetups and stuff like that, and so we're definitely missing them.
I'll jump in on this. I've got so having worked at WooCommerce and focused on community, I have a lot of recent context for meetups and events. One of the I started a new WooCommerce meetup shortly after I joined, a few months in, and it was like on a Monday or something. And then by the end of that week, I had published the announcement that we were switching away from all in-person meetups. Like the first one had been in person, so it was like right in that March timeframe where it's like, oh, we weren't sure. And so this is complex. I love Andrea; she does fantastic work, and I really appreciate how she handles situations like this. And part of the complexity is it's early on. She alludes to like the local guidelines, right? And
right.
WordPress, we can forget this sometimes. We'll have our own context and perspective from our own local community. It can be very different. And it is, in fact, very different all around the world. So, yeah, this is tricky. I find it fascinating. I like the approach that she's taking here. And when I say she, there are obviously a lot of folks have gone on into this. There's a lot of input and feedback. A lot of folks are involved. And yeah, it's a challenging thing. There's a tension there, right, about trust, and then there's like what I would be comfortable with, what you're comfortable with,
right?
And
right.
It's
the last thing I want is for anybody in a position of organizing this stuff to feel like it's up to them, if you know what I mean.
Right, right.
You just want people to, in good faith, show up. If they're the rules, please stick to the rules. But also, you can just imagine how anxious that would be if you are organizing this. Let's just pray that nobody has a problem whilst they're here. Because
I think those guidelines need just a bit of clarification on, you have option 1 or option B, and how you can be completely transparent about that. And I think then it'd be okay. And we've had a couple of comments that Cameron is saying it should be down to the local governing bodies and the local laws and that kind of stuff. But it's just, all I've got to say about it, I'm looking forward for them to come back. Personally, I'm not generally classed as an at-risk person, and I will be double vaccinated as of this coming Saturday. So I'm just on a personal level, just looking forward to going and making some new friends again in the real world and sharing knowledge and listening to what other people have got to say. Again, can't wait.
Yeah.
So,
Brian, any thoughts?
I just basically echo what everybody said. I started to resume attending WordCamps within the last couple of years just because I hate to fly. So it's always been tough to go to the ones I want to go to just because I don't like to fly. And so like the WordCamp US ones being in Nashville and St. Louis have been like awesome because I was able to drive down to those. I'm looking forward to them. Again, I'm a little on the camp of Cameron as it comes to, the local governing bodies and that we're all adults and that people just need to, make their own decisions. And I guess it's just,
Part of the challenge with the job that Andrea has here is that I feel fairly certain that she's getting input from folks who are very concerned about this.
Right.
Like, oh, they want to get back to this. Oh, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? Should we require? And so part of I see a strongness in the message, like, no, yes, this is our recommendation that this is for fully vaccinated folks. And no, you can't require anyone to tell you whether they were or not. And she's coming down really strong on that. And I would say there might even be a majority of organizers who are fine with it, or that aren't too bothered. They're going to follow local guidelines. They're going to resume or they're not going to resume. Yet, all of the folks matter, and there's some who are really concerned. And this is laying it out like, hey, this is how to approach this. Is what you can't do. And I always appreciate the lengths that Andrea will go to make things as clear as possible. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point. At least thought is being applied, because over here we have the Euros football soccer tournament, and the Wembley Stadium, which is our great big stadium. I think there's going to be like 60,000 people all just yelling and shouting and having a real great time of it. That's this Wednesday, so maybe we can just see how that goes and then not worry quite so much about our 50-person meetup, but. Yeah, curious. I feel the next one is right in Jonathan's wheelhouse. And to be honest with you, Paul and I I think we misjudged what this article actually meant when we looked at it the first time a little while ago. This is over on the WooCommerce side of things. Oh, yeah. So we've got an article entitled WooCommerce Payments. As I was reading it, I was thinking they've done Stripe, but that's not it, right? I was reading this and I was thinking they've just taken Stripe out of the equation, and you've now got WooCommerce acting as a payment gateway. But I don't think that's it. Jonathan, do you know anything about it? Are you able to explain this to me? I'll tell you where I'm at. I'll tell you what I think we're looking at. You link this up to your Stripe account. You link your WooCommerce. I don't use WooCommerce, just to be clear. Link WooCommerce up to your Stripe account, and then they just take all of the friction out. Everything's done kind of for you in an easy to read way. You don't have to worry so much. Refunds and everything can be taken care of in a much more straightforward way. But I could be wrong.
Can I play a game and see if any of us are right, and say, well, my version is that I understand is that you don't link it to your Stripe account. You kind of get almost like a secret Stripe account as part of via WooCommerce. But Jonathan,
you said it so much better than me.
Who's really Jonathan? None of us.
Yeah, that's much closer, Paul. Nice try, Nathan. So WooCommerce Payments has been out for a bit. It's a super interesting play. I'm a big fan of it for a few different reasons. And so what WooCommerce Payments is as Paul described, it's I would describe it as a bit of like a wrapper over Stripe. So Stripe, if you think about what Stripe is and what they're doing, like they're in the infrastructure, like payments infrastructure business, right? Like you can install Stripe directly. It's always been developer focused. And a lot of folks will install Stripe themselves as end users, and that works fairly well. But it's, that wasn't the intended experience, right? Like you're connecting API keys and kind of doing all this stuff.
Right.
WooCommerce Payments, WooCommerce has a direct partnership with Stripe, and they basically said, all right, we're going to take the infrastructure that you provide and we're going to build an integrated experience on top of that that's specific for WooCommerce. And I think, so it's interesting. as it is, like there's a lot of cool stuff that it does. It already has some great promise today. What I get more excited about is the future potential here. I would love to see WooCommerce to position their payments offering more and more as time goes on as their own like services layer infrastructure that others could build on top of. Like, what does it look like for developers to be able to build experiences that leverage WooCommerce Payments internally? And for instance, to build a theme that has some great blocks focused on payments, and to not anticipate that you need this whole monolithic like WooCommerce setup, or like maybe something really simple, and to be able to just leverage WooCommerce Payments as an offering that has, it's great infrastructure. It offers all the other things on top of it you could offer: Apple Pay, Android Pay, or Google Pay, whatever they call it these days. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. And then from a business model perspective, then I'm no longer at WooCommerce and Automatic. Just call out my bias here. I don't think the marketplace is, from an ideal perspective, the current WooCommerce marketplace is too long for this world in terms of its model and how it approaches things. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But when I take a step back from a business perspective, I think WooCommerce Payments is very much the future for Woo in terms of alignment with value for the customer and the opportunity to have it as a this services layer that you could build on top of. So it's interesting what's there today. They've just recently expanded to a few new countries because it was US only.
That's the bit that I'm highlighting on the screen. So we've now got not only the US, we've got Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, France, quite a lot. Italy, Spain, and Germany all able to make use of that. And that's really what
I'll just add a piece of nuance to this, though, that for anyone curious, like this is not just a wrapper on top of it. It is a full, like WooCommerce Payments, like they're owning this from a customer support perspective, like the integration experience. So it's like Stripe is the back-end technology, but it is like, for all intents and purposes, like it's a WooCommerce product.
Is there any reason? Oh, Brian's left. He left him. Oh, and I think he's back. There we go. Let's pop him back in. Is there any reason, Jonathan, or Brian, or Paul, why Automatic WooCommerce, let's say, wouldn't want to have complete control of that experience? So instead of having to go to, in a roundabout way, and create a Stripe account on your behalf, if you like, is there any scope, do you think, in the future that Automatic will do that all themselves and take the 1.4, 2.9, whatever it is, %?
There's not a good reason for that. I mean, Stripe is specifically in the infrastructure business, right? Like they're solving a lot of the tough problems. Stripe and WooCommerce, from my perspective, is just a fantastic partnership. Stripe and Automatic working together. Like this is what Stripe wants to do. Like they want to be in this business of, hey, we're gonna build all the tools, we're gonna solve all the hard problems at the infrastructure layer, and we want applications on top of it. There's just no real incentive. That for the end user, it's transparent. So what you thought, Nathan, it is, you install it, you'll see Stripe referenced, but in passing. Like it's all the setup process, everything is within the WordPress dashboard. And, once you've got it installed, like you're doing everything inside of WordPress and WooCommerce. So I think that's only going to become more prominent.
Yeah. So if you're in one of those, I don't know, what is that, 10 countries, you can take advantage of this.